I'm going to give a talk about the material and energy we all use in our daily lives. We're all dependent on using materials and energy, and we're all interconnected and interdependent to do so. What I'm going to talk today about is what is the role of data in this process? How do we understand these processes? And how could we use this to reduce our material and energy impact? So starting point is like a kind of snapshot of the economy today. We use 62 tons of materials that are both used for energy, like the upper graph flows, and materials, the flows on the bottom side of the graph. What we need to do to bring down our emissions and material use is to reduce 44% of the material that are used today are used to generate energy. To go to a renewable energy society, these materials will go down because it's basically fossil fuels and biological material. But what we also need to do is to reduce to increase recycling rates of both construction materials and short-lived products like appliances and like daily appliances. The first starting point to look at these material flows is to look at it at the national scale. So we have domestic material consumption, which measures like the territorial material use in certain countries. But in today's world, with all the global supply chains, this is not enough. So we need to look at how materials and energy are coming from other countries and how this can be attributed to national indicators. So what we conclude when looking at the global supply chains is that most countries in Europe and in America have a much bigger material and energy footprint if you take into account the global supply chains. Taking into account these global supply chains, we can come to something called like the material footprint, an aggregated indicator of the global supply chain impact in a certain country. Going one step further is to start from these aggregated indicators, but then go a bit more in depth on in which sectors do these impacts occur. For this, recent research looked at like the impacts taking into account the global supply chains for each of the sectors, and then we can see that the energy sector is currently the sector with the biggest impact, followed by transport, over land, and through pipelines. So, why is this data important, and what could we do with even more detailed data availability? Here's like an overview of the aggregated data sets which exist today to make policy and to act on supply chains. So we have like aggregated data sets going from 1980 to 2015 to understand the dynamics of material and energy change. And then we have a lot of data sets with monetary information on how the market exchanges between different sectors. So a lot of researchers build on this, and they extended these data sets with environmental indicators. So we know what the material and energy impact, the environmental impacts are of our consumption. But what would be interesting, I think today, is to build on this and to collect immediately physical data for each of the processes and do this in a coherent framework so we know how each of the sectors use energy and material all around the world. And if we have like frequently updated data of this, we could go further and design policies like personal carbon quota systems with like a kind of uniform labeling of products, taking into account these data, come to a fairer international reporting of environmental impacts, because now today, for example, in the climate negotiations, impacts are only measured on the territorial level, but not yet taking into account the downstream impacts. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities which could then further be explored. But the main message I wanted to tell today is that if we don't institutionalize these data collection processes, then it will be hard to do this. And it should be done in a transparent manner, it should be accessible, and then we can start going to the next phase of designing sector-based policies, and maybe go to an intelligent, transparent, hopefully democratic global planning economy or something like this. That was my main message.